All right. You started the live stream, Alyssa. We're ready?
We're all set.
Okay. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our special finance meeting. Today is April the 5th, 2021. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate this system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. The moderator for tonight is City Clerk Elissa Tinty, and she reserves the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute buttons. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking in order to avoid background noise and feedback. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. I will call on members by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website. Although we will not be having public speaking tonight, you can sign up to speak at our monthly council meetings. Please email Elissa Tinty to sign up by noon the day of the meeting, or you can submit written comment for the record by the same deadline. And our next common council meeting is tomorrow. So that deadline is tomorrow at noon. The email address is emtinty@kingston-ny.gov. You can also drop comments off at the box outside the door at City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs, members, or your ward's representative at any time. We're always happy to talk. Clerk Elissa Tinty, as I noted, is the moderator for today's meeting. She has the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at this evening's meeting, we have in attendance myself, Rennie Scott Childress, Chair of the Finance Committee, and members Steve Shabbat, Michelle Hirsch, Tony Davis, Don Tollerman. Who am I missing? That's everybody, right? Yes, that's everybody. We also have council members Rita Worthington and Patrick O'Reilly. We have city staff, Elissa Tinty, the aforementioned, Kevin Court, Housing Director, and John Toohey, our comptroller. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss an item that came up recently in terms of a no financial impact shift of monies for the Department of Housing initiatives. Let me find this here. So it reads currently, whereas a request has been made for a budget transfer in the amount of $307,265 for the reorganization of the Housing Department for a full-time staff person available to assist with the implementation of the zoning initiative, and whereas there will be no financial impact for said transfer, now resolved that the Common Council of the City of Kingston authorizes a budget transfer in the amount of $307,265 as per the attached for the reorganization of the Housing Department for a full-time staff person available to assist with the implementation of the zoning initiative. All right, so we have with us tonight Kevin Court, who's the Director of Housing Initiatives. So Kevin, welcome. Let me get back to you here. There we go. So if you could remind us, please, the necessity of this movement of money.
Thanks. And first off, thank you everyone for this special meeting. I know that there's a lot of meetings that happen in evenings and that you give up a lot of your time. So I really appreciate the special session to accommodate this sort of last minute request. So to circle back, when we last spoke, I've submitted some changes to the budget for the Housing Initiatives Department. Those changes include a couple of items. They include moving grant revenue from the Restore grant, a grant that was previously given to the City of Kingston for the demolishing of the bowling alley that existed where Energy Square stands today. As a part of that grant, there was also provisions for the rehabilitation of 3 properties in Midtown, and those funds are available. They've been given by the state, And so part of the changes include moving those funds to my department so that we can begin issuing an RFP and begin the process of rehabbing those properties. In addition, there is also kind of a shuffling of staff. So originally, the budget for my department included a part-time staff member and a full-time staff member, along with the director position. Those positions have since been consolidated and moved around a bit. I believe the one for a senior account clerk has been subsumed into a different department. And that also corresponds to some movements that have happened with the land bank and the funding that the department used to have that has now been dedicated towards that. So coupled with these changes, there's also increases in revenue. Those increases come from the addition of 2 other grants, a LISC grant, which we've received to deal with our vacant properties. We've already received a first portion of that LISC grant, LISC 1.0, completed before my arrival, and now we are working on LISC 2.0. And so those funds are being added at this time as well. Lastly, because there's lots of stuff in here, we're also adding the revenue from the ADLN grant, part of the revenue that we've received from that, in order to fund this position in my department. So one of the items of confusion that hopefully we've had some time to read about, and again, I apologize for the last minute submission. The position that's being created is going to be made up of basically 2 part-time positions that we're hoping to merge and create into one larger full-time position. That person will be responsible for administering both the ADLN grant and the LISC grant, at least certain subsets of that, which will help free up time for me to work a lot more closely with our zoning initiatives. So I think last time there was a little bit of confusion about whether or not the person that we would be hiring would be directly involved in the zoning, and that's not the case. This will help the department increase capacity so that I can spend more time working with the zoning initiatives. There's lots of information in here, but I believe I have most of it, grasped. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Don Tollerman?
Hey, Kevin, thank you for your initiative here. So first of all, what is LISC and what is EDLM? And
Okay.
And what's going to be involved? You said this person's going to be managing them. What will that include?
Great. So LISC is the Local Initiative Support Corporation. They have given us a grant in the amount of $135,000.
Is that a state? Is that an Albany-based state thing?
That is. The money comes from a settlement from a bank and the state. The result of that settlement created a pool of funds of which we've received a portion, $135,000.
I see. Okay.
Included in the work plan for that grant originally was a plan for software renewal, some consultancy work to kind of expand the scope of the vacant property study that was done under LISC 1.0. It included some funds for title searches to clear title on properties the city has acquired or that has not yet acquired that are vacant to help those move along, and additional funding for legal services providers to help enforce the vacant property law. Under a revised work plan, which I worked to submit shortly after meeting you, we've decided to focus most of the funds into the last 2 of those initiatives. So title searches to help clear and move properties that are currently vacant that where city is not able to act on because of muddled title or other kind of issues, and for legal services providers to provide notice and help enforce the vacant property law at a state level. So that will be the main 2 actions that are being undertaken under that grant.
And what is the EDLM?
So ADLN is a grant we've received from Enterprise Partners, and that is the Anti-Displacement Learning Network. There are many cities in the state of New York that have received this grant to help tackle issues of displacement. Under that grant, which is a total of $1 million that the City of Kingston has received, there are a few initiatives that are underway. The first being an emergency housing solution. We've identified tiny homes as the preferred metric there. So it'll help fund that. There are also plans to create a housing trust fund and to look into the creation of a right to counsel program, all of which would be potentially coming from those funds. Included in that grant is an additional $25,000 of revenue that will be used for the part-time position as well. So those have, the person that will be hired in the department will spend about 50% of their time with each of the grants.
Okay, thank you.
So a crucial thing there, I just want to check on. when you say that you're trying to get clear title on a number of properties, that's in order to return those properties to being tax-paying properties, right? Because they're not right now.
That's correct. So these properties are identified as vacant, and currently they are either the city has not received property taxes, and therefore we're in a position where the city could possibly move to foreclose on those properties, or they are vacant and we do have clear title, and so we can begin to enforce the vacant property law. The big change that came about with this vacant property law is it allows us to levy fines against not only property owners but lien holders. So if there is a bank that has several vacant properties in Kingston, and those properties have become, they are either have building code violations or have become dangerous in some way, the state now allows us to levy fines directly against not only property owners but lien holders. And so this will help us both inventory those properties and enforce that.
Is there a limit to how much we can charge them?
Yes, $500 a day.
And that's great. So that adds up quickly.
Very quickly. So, part of the reason why I think we are anxious to get some of this done and to get some help with those legal notices is because there is the potential for this to pay for itself in that.
Great. Tony Davis. Uh-oh. It looks like we're the amazing shrinking committee here. Steve Shabbat, looks like he's returning. Rita, you've got questions? It's a good time.
Yes, can I ask a question, please? Hi, Kevin. So when you talk about the title searches, I mean, sometimes it can be, I work in real estate, so I know what the title searches is. Sometimes it can be awful. And, banks can have liens against the properties, so that automatically makes them first when paying back. So I'm wondering with these funds that you have, if you're not able to clear the title, is that the alternative to then levy fines against the homeowner so you can kind of recoup monies? Or if you're not able to clear these titles, then what are you going to do with these properties?
That's right. So that's one of the first issues we've been having is that the city is not able to foreclose on them because many times there is no clear chain of ownership. We've definitely identified some properties where that has been a problem. The big change here is that thanks to this change in the vacant property law, if we find that there are banks that are lien holders, we can levy those fines. And that can be usually when banks are receiving fines, they're a little bit more, eager to work with us to try to find and to invest in finding the chain of ownership. So I think that's a first step, and getting those legal services providers to send those letters will definitely help with that. Ultimately, currently there is no SOP or standard, guideline onto which properties, if any, the city is going to rehabilitate itself, or which properties are going to be disposed of through an auction, or which properties are going to be transferred to the land bank as another option. So a first step before we decide any of that or get into any of that is to try to get these properties in order and just see how we can, move them best. And if we find that there actually are no liens against a property, and that there are property owners that do live in Kingston or that are near in Kingston, or that are simply having trouble with, payments, one of the things that's included as a part of this grant is some funds to RIBCO to help subsidize the cost of their foreclosure prevention program. So, it's not just fines that we're trying to do. We're also trying to help if we do find for those cases where there are homeowners that are just, we found them, they're there, and the only problem is that they're having trouble paying their property tax. There's an option there. That's where we would send that through RIBCO's foreclosure prevention program. So that the grant also includes some funds for that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just to be absolutely clear, the houses you're talking about when you call them vacant, that means there's nobody, if it's a house, a residence, there's nobody living there.
That's correct.
Okay. So we're not talking about moving people out of the house that they're in.
No.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And is it sometimes hard to find out which banks are involved?
Yeah, well, so some of the anecdotal information that we have from the land bank, which is kind of the first organization that took a crack at some of these houses that we've looked at, is that they have had trouble even on properties which the city has already begun the process of foreclosing on, clearing title. And so that's something that they've identified as an issue with, adding properties to their roster that they're looking at to try to work with, is that they've already identified properties for which title has been an issue.
Great. Steve Shabbat, do you have any questions? Michelle Hirsch?
I just want to say thank you to Kevin and to John Toohey just for all the further clarification that they gave around the issue and the emails and spreadsheets and explaining. I think there was some definite confusion regarding the changes in the department and what was going on, and so it was good to have some clarity. So thank you.
Steve, are you there? Looks like we've lost Steve and Tony.
What was going on?
Is that, can you all tell if that's Steve trying to talk or is that something else?
Did have some clarity, so thank you.
Oh, that's, oh, that's you again. All right.
Bad dream. It sounds like somebody has us like on YouTube or something, or somebody has it on going in the background.
Uh-huh. I texted Tony to see if he could tell me what's going on, but I don't have a response from him. Well, oh, there was one other thing, Kevin. Isn't there isn't there a concern that if we don't act on this quickly, that we're going to lose some of the grant money?
When I last spoke to you, that was the case. But since our last finance meeting, when I realized that it might be delayed a little bit, pulled around and worked. So one of the issues was that the LISC grant in particular has been extended several times.
Rennie, I think that's Steve trying to talk.
I think so too. Let me.
I just muted Steve because it's not coming through. It's creating the feedback.
Thank you.
Let me. I'm texting him to see if he can call in. Well, there's his face.
Tony's in right now.
You see Tony. Tony, are you there? Quick, ask your question.
Yes, sorry about that, guys. I'm on the phone with our guy. See, I just got frozen again. Kyle. I just got right in and then I got frozen.
We can hear you though.
Oh, you're good to go.
All right, now
Yeah.
I don't know. I apologize. So I'm trying to get this up. All righty. All right. I'm not sure. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
All right. I'm not sure if the questions have been asked or not, but Kevin, if he's still here.
Yes.
All right. So this is going to be it's the grant. Is it for 1 year?
Yeah, it's a one-time grant. So this
How much
position
is
would
this
be
grant?
funded up until for 1 year. Yes.
And how much is the grant for again? for this
Two separate
position?
grants. The first is the LISC grant. The total of that is 135,000,
Yeah,
and the ADLN grant is for 1 million.
and that money together is going to pay for this 1 year full-time position.
25,000 from each.
Alrighty, now my question is, so this is just for 1 year, and you're creating a full-time position.
That's right.
This is going to cover the person's salary and benefits.
Yes.
So then next year, you're going to have to apply for these grants again, and I'm not sure if that's been answered.
No, it has not. It is unlikely that either of these grants would be given again. And so the most likely outcome is that the position would just be a 1 year funded position and that it would no longer exist after that.
So that is my question. If we're going to move forward with this, and I have no problem moving forward with this, if you need the staff in there, but I wanted to make sure it's specific in this writing that this is a 1 year and 1 year position, and and it's not going to be automatically that this is now in our budget, unless the mayor creates this position and finds money for it. That I just want to make sure that it's that it's noted that this is a 1 year position, and then it's not going to just be automatically going forward. This person is going to be in this department, and automatically funded by the city. Obviously, we would have to look at the budget and figure out if we can, in your budget or whatever, or the city budget, if it's funding there for. I just want to make sure. Right in.
Yeah, I believe John Toohey wants to respond to that.
All right.
Well, hi, thank you. Right, so in terms of the position, I mean, nothing would be automatic for next year, Tony. Obviously,
right.
In this situation,
Melissa, can you mute? There we go. Thank you.
I'm hearing a reverb or whatever that is of my own voice, but there's a number of grants that Kevin's department's working on. I would have to imagine as part of the budgetary process for 2022, the mayor will evaluate with Kevin, with my office, as to the status of the grants and projects that department is working on. I mean, at this point, Kevin doesn't see or forecast the need for that position, but none of us have a crystal ball. And I would say that no matter what happens with that position, the council will be able to review the budget and ultimately will make the decision on whether or not a position would be funded or not. And I would presume if that position is proposed or not proposed in next year's budget would be dependent upon the level of work and the status of grants at that time. So just to clarify, I just don't want to walk away from this meeting as it taken that there's an assurance that there's no way that position would be in the budget next year. Kevin stating basically on the best of his knowledge right now. So, and if that does come up, obviously there would be discussion about it internally during our budget processes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was. I apologize if I wasn't clarifying enough. I'm just nervous about this Zoom, and I'm not sure when I'm getting frozen or not. But yes, and so this is a one grant, and if I heard from Kevin, this grant money and won't be there next year to apply for again.
Correct.
Well, right, meaning they're not going to be there.
Correct.
That's correct. There will not be an opportunity to apply for those grants again. I mean, I certainly hope that given the scope of the department, we can continue this position. I definitely think there's a lot of work given the housing crisis and the breadth that this department seems to be taking on. So I certainly hope that that's a discussion that we can have at a future point to make this a more or less a permanent position. But at the moment, I don't see that. I'm not sure of any dedicated funding streams that have been identified to help fund that position. We need to create a municipal housing plan as part of the conditions of Ulster County's Housing Action Plan. This rezoning is obviously very large. These grants are obviously over $1 million, and so there are lots of different initiatives. So, there is a need. I certainly hope that we can find a way to continue that position in the future. But as it stands right now, those grants would not be available.
All right. And right now, you have 2 part-time employees, or no?
No. You have a housing department of 1.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. Anything else then from anyone? Okay. Steve is still seems like he's lost somewhere in the internet, but if is there at this point, then I'll entertain a motion to consider. Tony Davis makes the motion. Do we have a second? Michelle Hirsch seconds. Do we have any discussion? Well, that looks like Steve has joined us by phone.
So right now, I just want to clarify, this is zero impact on us right now,
Correct.
on the city.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Steve Shabbat?
Okay, Ren-
Well,
We can hear you, Steve.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. I'm on my phone.
You're muted, Rennie.
Sorry, trying to stop the feedback. So Steve, do you have any questions for Kevin or John Toohey about this position, or do you want any review of what we've discussed?
No, I think this is pretty much what we discussed the other night. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge it's a one-year position. The money is available. I think we might as well use it.
All right, good. So Steve, if you can mute your phone now that he's good, thank you. All right, so Michelle Hirsch, discussion?
Yeah, I just want to, state that I did go back to my budget from our budget meetings in December, and we did vote to fund 2 full-time positions in the Housing Initiative Department.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion? In that case, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the proposal? You get 4 thumbs up. Steve, maybe you can text me your vote.
Just unmute.
Can he put it in the chat, Steve?
Yeah, that would be fine, but I don't know if he can reach the chat if he's freezing otherwise, right? I just don't know. He texted me yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. With that said, then Elissa, if you will add this definitely to the agenda, which just leave it there, I guess. And then we will call this meeting closed. Thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate your being here, and we will take a 0-minute break and go into caucus.
Just give me 1 minute to start the meeting.
All right, no, I was kidding. We'll take a 2 or 3 minute break here. So everybody has some time to get over into caucus.
We're not using the same Zoom meeting. No. Okay.
No,
All right. Let me take some time to get into that.
I hear you.
All righty. I'll see you in a little
Night
bit.
all. See you in a second.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Do we have to adjourn? We're good?